Okay, we are going to call this Tuesday, August 4th, 2026 workshop of the Martin County School Board to order. If you would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Maggie, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Russell?
Here?
Mrs. Roberts?
Here?
Chair Powers?
Here.
Vice Chair Moriarty?
Here.
Mrs. Pritchett?
Here.
Superintendent Main?
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we're going to move right into our discussion items. We have item 2.01, which is our medical insurance options for future consideration. Mr. Calderon.
Okay, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Main, Don Calderon, Director of Risk Management and Employee Benefits, the Martin County School District, and alongside me is Gabrielle Swain and Dustin Keene from the Garing Group. As you recall, we were up here 2 months ago in June to talk about 8 or 9 different topics for the board to consider for future consideration for the medical insurance plan for the 27-28 year and beyond. And so as part of our follow-up, we are here today to talk about 5 of those topics. The remaining topics will be back before you in October to discuss some longer range of those topics. So we've got 5 things that we're going to discuss today. The first one being the PEO, which stands for Professional Employer Organization. We're going to talk about tobacco, nicotine surcharge things to consider, spousal surcharge, an update in our wellness program, and a follow-up on the PPO runoff analysis per a request from a board member. Okay, so I'm going to hand off the presentation for right now to Gabrielle Swain, who is going to give you an update on the Garing's information about the school board potentially joining a PEO.
Yes, so we reached out to multiple offers of a PEO, including ADP. ADP, most of them didn't respond, but ADP advised that they do not quote on school districts. And this is because it could result in your loss of FRS status and pension eligibility was their answer to that question.
So you did check with FRS?
We did check with ADP on their ability to quote.
Okay, but you didn't check with FRS? Okay.
Any questions on the school board joining a PEO?
Ms. Roberts?
Just to close that loop, if you could check with FRS and see what that looks like and if there's anybody else that's doing it. Thank you.
Yep, you got it. Okay, so the next topic that Gabrielle is going to discuss is a tobacco and nicotine surcharge program. So there's quite a bit of information on here. I'm going to let her go over what they reviewed and what their recommended approach is after talking with staff.
Yes, so if you remember from our last discussion, there are 2 ways if you wanted to offer a nicotine surcharge program that you could do it. One would be through an affidavit. That would be a zero-cost option to the school district. However, it is up to them to attest correctly. The other option is to actually test individuals for their nicotine status, and this would be through a cotinine test. It's a metabolite of nicotine, stays in the body longer, so that is usually what is recommended. So there's various ways you can test for this. We would recommend going through Quest, because Cigna has a good partnership with Quest, and it was the most cost-effective, and you could bring them on site and test your employees that way. But there's multiple options: oral saliva, venipuncture, dried blood spot, finger stick, and home collection kit. So the lowest cost option is the venipuncture. Other options are also listed in that dark blue box for your consideration. Finger stick being perhaps a little bit less invasive, but it is more costly. These all range from $23,000 to $67,000 if you were to send a home kit. We did go to multiple vendors to see who would offer this to you, and it would be, we went to Quest, LiveIQ, and Health Designs. We only received 2 quotes, but again, the cheapest, most cost-effective option is Quest due to their relationship with Cigna, your health insurer. You can see on the bottom, we have estimated what the annual revenue would be to the school district. So currently you have 1,812 employees on the plan. You have a bit over 200 spouses, so in total you have 2,084 employees and spouses on the plan. If we assume that 10% are nicotine users, which is on the lower end of the Florida average, then that would be 181 employees or 208 employees and spouses. If you do a $100 a month surcharge, you can see what that monthly revenue would be for the district. And in total, that would be $217,000 in estimated annual revenue for employees only, or almost $250,000 for employees plus spouses.
So just to give you an idea of kind of what our local competitors are doing, I personally spoke with a benefits manager at both Palm Beach County School District and St. Lucie County School District. So Palm Beach County School District does a simple affidavit when employees are hired. They just sign something saying they either are a tobacco user or they're not. There's no proof in it. There is a $50 a month surcharge for those employees that attest to using tobacco or nicotine. However, employees have the option of going into their ERP system. They use PeopleSoft, and they could change their election anytime for that. St. Lucie County School District does not do any nicotine affidavit or testing. I was at the Florida Educational Risk Management Association conference a couple of weeks ago in Sarasota, and I spoke with the director of risk and benefits there, Lynn Peterson. Their school district recently just put in a nicotine and spousal surcharge, coincidentally, during their open enrollment for their plan year that starts right now. And they are charging, they have a $100 per month tobacco surcharge for their employees. So we went ahead and just put in a $100 surcharge. Ultimately, if the board decides to proceed with this, it would be at your discretion how much, or if any, surcharge you would want to attest to apply to that.
So I would be curious about the affidavit. What does it say? Are there consequences if they have if they say no and they have smoking-related illness or a chronic illness associated with smoking? Does it impact their coverage? Like, what would be the consequence of saying you're not a smoker when you really are?
Typically, it's up to and including termination of employment, but there are other consequences as well that you can list out for them.
Yeah, it's really up to each individual's school board. I've got a copy of Palm Beach County's. It just varies as to what, if any, penalty they would face for not being truthful.
Okay. Vice Chair Moriarty?
And would you say it was, which was the county that you said was doing the affidavit?
Palm Beach County.
Okay, and then, do you have any idea what the percentage of, that are admitting it and paying the surcharge?
No, but I could contact them and ask them if they have that information.
Yeah, and if, while you're doing that, you can get the specific wording, that would be great too, because I'm very curious about the wording. And as far as the other stuff, I don't love the whole testing for this thing. There's expenses with it. For me, I don't really want to be in that arena, just to give feedback on that.
Well, and I know the city of Stewart does it too. They have a tobacco-free workplace, and I think it's their insurance as well, so you might want to check with them and see.
Sorry, we work with the city of Stewart, and they do actual testing at their clinic for that. So they do actual testing, not an affidavit over there.
They have a
All right.
tobacco-free workplace.
Yes.
Ms. Roberts?
So if I say I'm not a smoker, and then I either become a smoker or I forgot when I signed the affidavit that I really was a smoker, besides whatever penalty for that, employment penalty, is there any medical penalty? Like, is there any medical issue? So let's say I signed an affidavit that says I wasn't a smoker, but then a couple weeks later, I became a 2-pack-a-day smoker, and then I developed emphysema, and then I ended up in the hospital, and then I ended up with all these other issues. Is there any repercussion from that? Is there any, or is it just, oh, well?
So this would be administered by the district and your team. So the repercussions would be by the district and the district only. No repercussions on the carrier side.
As far as medical care goes?
No repercussions as far as medical care goes. Are you asking in terms of accessing care or getting coverage?
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, and the second part of that question is, so I'm assuming that some of these, let's say Palm Beach County or something, if I signed the affidavit that said, yes, I am a smoker, that I have access to some program to help me not be a smoker, correct? Is that part of the whole package to get me away from my cigarettes?
Yes, and if you go to the next page, you have to offer whether you're doing if you're doing the surcharge, either way, affidavit or actually testing them, you do have to offer them legally a alternate to this. So they have to be offered a way to complete a cessation program. It would be a 4-week course, and it has to be offered by the district at least once during work hours. Some clients offer 2 of these courses. City of Stewart is an example of that. Supervisors have to allow employees time to attend these classes. And you could do, if they choose to do a community course, it has to be 4-week community courses with the certificate of completion. They can do that as well, but they're not allowed to just do tools to quit for a one-time class. It has to be a 4-week course. But you have to offer it to them, and if they complete it, then they do not get that surcharge.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions about this, Ms. Pritchett?
So is the surcharge active while they are trying to quit?
No, so if you go to the bottom of the second page that we're on where it says the sample timeline, so for example, if we're aiming to implement this on 7/1 of '27, if you're doing the testing, that would start around September to start coordinating that and hosting testings from October through March. Then you would have to host the cessation classes throughout that period so that they have either completed it or not completed it prior to open enrollment, so you know if they have met these requirements or not.
So in my thought process here, they agree to do a cessation. They do it, they complete it. After that, unless we test them randomly, we don't have any idea whether or not they are
Correct,
smoke-free.
correct.
So I would just say it has to come with some sort of testing, because we're offering them a class to quit, but after that, we have no idea whether or not they have or not. So
Right, and
we have
just-
to have some accountability.
Yeah, and you would test them before the class either way, so you wouldn't know what their status is after the test, because they just have to complete it. Anecdotally, we spoke to one of our wellness coordinators, And she mentioned that people from the surcharge don't tend to quit, but they actually do from the 4-week class. They found that people actually have quit from the class when they weren't going and intending to quit at all, just get rid of their surcharge.
Right, but I kind of think when we're talking about giving them the opportunity, they are going to be required to pay a surcharge if they are a smoker. It goes away if they're not, but then what do we do? That's kind of where I'm at. Like, where are we after they say they've quit? You have to have something to show, maybe 6 months later or whatever the time is. It doesn't just stop.
Yeah, so you would do it once every year, and it does,
Okay,
that is
you
per
just
leg-
answered the question.
Yeah, legally, it's once a year, but yes, you can't do it more than that, but yes. Once a year, you would retest them. This would be an ongoing thing. You test them every year, they do it. If they test positive and they did their cessation class, but they tested positive the next year, then they have to do another class if they do that. But it's annually that they get tested.
Okay, Ms. Russell?
Instead of a surcharge, could there be an incentive for the ones that don't smoke? If we have a reduction in cost?
That would be up to the board's discretion. People do that.
But that becomes a funding issue, how we're going to fund an incentive for not smoking because of the costs associated with it. The board would have to decide how they're going to incentivize it. So most employers are moving towards the surcharge because of that reason.
Wait, Ms. Roberts?
Nope, go ahead.
Ms. Roberts was next, and then I had Ms. Pritchett, then Dr. Moriarty.
Thank you. So I don't like being in the testing business, but I also think that if you're not in the testing business, you've got a whole door that's open where I rode in an elevator with her and she smelled like smoke, and now I want to turn her in, and then she's going to double down and sign an affidavit again and say that I don't know what's wrong with her, and we're going to like create a hostile work environment with that. Regardless of where we land with this, whether we land with a surcharge, don't land with a surcharge, et cetera, I'm questioning whether we can use wellness dollars to offer the program, the 4-week program for people who want to quit smoking. So,
You can do that.
and if we can get some detail on that as to what that looks like. I mean, I think there might be some benefit as we're trying to encourage healthier habits, et cetera, and we know that that's something that leads to longer-term issues that probably we would be able to, just to see if there's any interest. I mean, I think,
And I think Tobacco Free Florida offers those courses to employers and their employees for free.
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Pritchett?
Oh, Ms. Powers.
Sorry.
Can I just respond to Mrs. Roberts' option about using wellness dollars? That's something, if we wanted to do that for 27, 28, we could definitely have those discussions now, but you'll see later in the presentation, we do have our wellness dollars allocated towards the district's new wellness program through Cigna Wellness Experience, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Yep.
Good, good.
Sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I think the incentive is not having to pay the surcharge. I don't think we should offer additional incentives.
Dr. Moriarty?
And I just want to add on to, I feel like in general, it should be more of like what you're doing good for us should result in discounts versus what you're doing bad for us. We should penalize you. And so just in the whole general presentation here, I like more of the wellness bonuses for doing good things versus penalizing people and testing them. And I mean, are we just going to test smoking, or can we now test alcohol and sugar levels? And we can really go down a rabbit hole with that. So I'm really looking forward to your next slide about wellness and
Yes.
discounts there.
That's
And
on
we have
slide
gone
6.
down that rabbit hole before. There are a lot of things that we can incentivize. There's blood pressure, there's sugar levels, there's all kinds of things that you can, but would be very expensive. But go ahead, I'll let you move on to the next.
Okay, so the next topic is the spousal surcharge on slide 5 there. And so this is information as a follow-up to the request of what it would look like if employees who have their spouses on our district's medical insurance plan, if their spouse has the opportunity to receive medical insurance through their own employer, what that would look like in a spousal surcharge. So Gabrielle's going to take it away.
Yep, so there's two options. There's a surcharge and a carve-out option. So the surcharge would be similar to the tobacco. This would be through an affidavit, which they can do when they're doing open enrollment. They can attest to the fact that their spouse does not have creditable coverage elsewhere through, for example, through an alternate employer. And then if they are still, if they do have alternate coverage elsewhere and they're still choosing to be on your plan, they would receive a surcharge for that. The other option is carve-out, which means that if that person does have creditable coverage elsewhere, that spouse, they would not be allowed on the plan at all. There wouldn't be a surcharge, they just would not be allowed on the plan. So both of these are options. So if you look at the bottom box, that is what it would look like if you did a $100 per month surcharge and a $200 per month surcharge. So you currently have 272 spouses on your plan. We're estimating 40% would be subject to the surcharge. Again, the average we see is 40 to 60%, so this is on the lower end of the estimate. But that monthly revenue would be about $11,000, annually $130,000. Same concept with the $200 a month, except the estimated annual revenue goes up to $262,000 annually. The carve-out is more disruptive to your employees, as they would just not have, they would not even have the option to be on your plan. They would have to go on their spouse's plan, but it is an option that some groups take.
So just for contextual purposes, Palm Beach County, I spoke with them. They currently do not do a spousal surcharge. They have discussed it in the past, but it's not currently implemented. St. Lucie County does not have it either, but St. Lucie County has a little bit of a different structure with their tiers. So they have employee only, and then they have employee plus one dependent. So you know how here at the school district we have employee, employee plus child or children, employee plus spouse, employee plus family. They have that employee plus one dependent. And so basically what that employee plus one dependent is equivalent to having an employee plus spouse, but they have that option. So in case there was a single parent that only had one child, it would, they could knock out two birds with one stone. And we just picked $100 or $200, because like I said, I had that meeting with Sarasota County while I was at that conference, and they just implemented it at $200, a spousal surcharge. They gave us some good tips on how we wanted to do it, but ultimately is at the discretion of the board, and we have mechanisms to capture that if you would like, either during open enrollment in our Bentech enrollment platform. So open for any questions.
I think they already asked that question during open enrollment, don't they? If your spouse is employed or eligible for coverage?
No,
Maybe I'm thinking of another.
Yeah, no, we have a box for spousal additions and for dependents, but not for what you're thinking of.
Okay.
But we could easily add it in our open enrollment module.
Ms. Pritchett, did you have something?
In going over these things that we could implement, how would that change what happens during the year when we're looking at our numbers and we're like at 109% versus 75%? Does this make a dent in any of that?
It
If I asked
eventually
it the right
could.
way.
It eventually could. It probably wouldn't the first year. If you're doing nicotine surcharges and now you actually have people on the plan that are now quitting, eventually that would lead to less claims, especially in the COPD space. But that would take a while to get that ROI. As far as the spousal surcharge, there could be savings on those spouses' claims depending on, the level of sickness. It just depends on who that person is. If they're on your plan, they probably do need coverage. but they may not have coverage elsewhere since the board does not contribute more than $6,500 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
And you were saying only, you talked to Sarasota, they do the spousal surcharge?
Yeah,
but
they
are-
had just implemented it, and they went over their whole process, so it's something that we could easily do if that was the board's desire. Okay. Some good information for Dr. Moriarty. Our wellness program. So, if anybody was checking their emails over the summer, I know all of you were, on July 1st, you received an email through the benefits hotline. So we had heard what the board had wanted and wished for earlier in the spring about kind of incentivizing healthy behavior and being proactive about their health. So we totally revamped our entire wellness program in about 90 days. And it went live on July 1st. So we partnered with Cigna, and the new wellness program is called the Cigna Wellness Experience. And what it does is it allows any employee who's enrolled in the district's medical insurance to earn up to $350 this year, in 26-27 year, for completing a variety of healthy, proactive choices in their health. And a lot of what we've provided in this wellness program are some of the things that we have been doing. So we didn't want to lose all the positive momentum from our previous wellness program. So what we did was we built in some things that employees can earn dollar amounts on. So for example, completed the biometric screening. It's going to look a little different this year, but you could earn $50 instantly by doing that. Completing the health assessment within the Cigna app or in the portal online is another $50. And then having your annual physical, or if you're a female, having your well woman visit, that's an extra $100 right there. So just by doing the things that most people who have been dedicated employees to the wellness program, they can earn $200. And then there's a variety, a very long, deep bench of items that the employees can do to get started, whether it's daily, monthly, quarterly programs that they can do within the app and within the portal to earn an extra $150. Employees that earn this can be rewarded through a gift card. It's going to come directly from Cigna to the employee. And the great thing is that Cigna is going to just take it out of our wellness funds account for this year. And it's awesome because everything is built into the app. We've got a lot of positive feedback from employees on the Cigna app. So the wellness information is in there, MD Live is in there. You can even see your health savings account funds in there. So the app is like the one-stop shop, and we've been really excited. That was a great improvement over our previous carrier, that everything is in a single place for our employees. So we did a launch obviously on July 1st, knowing that most of our employees didn't return until July 31st. So starting in the third week of August through September, the Risk and Benefits Department will be visiting every school site and department to go over this with employees and also to talk to them about the new process for the biometric screening. So we've partnered with Quest for that, and employees can actually make an appointment and they can go to Quest whenever they want, starting today through March 31st to get their biometric screenings. We created a one-page flyer with videos and a QR code, step-by-step instructions, and we delivered this message first with the transportation employees during the in-service training late last week. So all of our employees are going to be learning more about this through email and then in person with our staff that will be going out to every department and school site starting later this month. Any questions on that?
So is this only available to employees that are on the Cigna plan?
For earning the $350, yes. We did have the ability to keep some of the utilized programs for people that are not on the district's plan for wellness. So we still have Peloton, our corporate wellness agreement with Peloton, that allows all employees the ability to have access to a free app that they can use for a variety of health exercises, meditation, and breathing exercises as well.
Ms. Roberts?
Is there a way you can, at a cost, of course, let non-insurance participants do the biometric screening?
We could get back to you on that.
Okay. I mean, I know we have employees that aren't on the health insurance, but I mean, I think if we had it a possibility where, yeah, you can pay for this and get this, I mean, it's information that would probably be valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Moriarty?
Mr. Calderon, on the app, it says these rewards are in cash, but you mentioned some kind of a gift card, so.
Yeah, so they can redeem it. It's kind of wellness cash, so they could redeem those points and they can get gift cards through Cigna. And it's going to come out of the district's wellness fund. So it's not actually like they're going to receive $20 in the mail. It's wellness cash, and they could redeem it. They could also redeem it at, I think there's like a couple dozen different retailers that partner up. So if they wanted to, buy something from Target's app, they can utilize those funds to pay for things. So.
And they could, this is every year they could do this, or?
Well, yeah, this is the first year, right. So this is the first year we're doing this. Cigna has different options, and we settled on this one. But, I don't know, they have 4 or 5 different options. So we wanted to see how this year went before we made decisions about future years.
And the app is very easy to use. It's very easy to get on there, so I like the changes you guys made there, so nice work.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next slide is a question that I'm definitely going to let Gabrielle discuss because it involves math. And it's the topic of the PPO plan, the runoff analysis.
Yes, so a question was raised by the board about when do we predict there will be no more people on that PPO plan, which is now grandfathered. High level, we predict it will be near zero in the 2032-2033 plan year. This is a logarithmic equation, but you'll see starting on 6/30 of 2024, so that's that 172 number in the upper left, that is what you started right before we grandfathered this plan. We also made quite a few plan changes to that plan. It dropped down to 151 on 7/1 of 24, down to 118 employees on 6/30/25, down to 97 by 7/1 of 25. As of 6/30/26, we were at 86 employees, and then after this current open enrollment, as of July 1st, 2026, we're now at 73 individuals. But you can see where we predict it to be as we move through the upcoming plan years. Yep, we're down from, so it's fallen by 73 employees, which is 52% enrollment reduction.
Ms. Roberts?
And I think when we started this, we thought it would take about 10 years, so
Believe
the
so, yes.
projection is falling true. Thank you.
Okay, so the last slide is just a summary of recommendations based on the information that Gabrielle and Dustin have provided today. Ultimately, staff and Gary and group were at the pleasure of the board. So if there is future discussions you'd like to have on any of these topics, our plan is to come back in October to talk about those other topics that were kind of longer range plans. So we can work together. If you have any questions between now and then, we can include that as a follow-up in a couple of months.
So I would kind of like to see what our policies, how our policies are comparing to our neighboring counties. I know, for example, St. Lucie County only offers a high deductible plan to their employees. while we offer a PPO and an HMO option to our employees. How does what we offer compare? You know, because I've heard that quite a bit, and I know that our benefits I feel like our benefits are better than St. Lucie County, just because of the options that we offer. And I just want to know, I know it'll be harder for us to compete with our larger neighbor to the south, Palm Beach. It's just, as Ms. Roberts always says, you know, it's in the numbers. But I just want to see how we are kind of sitting. Yeah. And they have a bigger network, and they have all the things that we don't have in a smaller county. So just so that we can understand what that looks like as we make decisions on how we're going to fund it in the future.
Yeah, and we can definitely do that. I just want to just state something, the difference between our previous carrier with Florida Blue, who St. Lucie County School District still has, compared to Cigna. So while we have that OAPIN network plan, that the fee structure when employees use it is kind of HMO based, but it does provide nationwide services for those on that plan. So like we got
Cigna does.
Cigna
Our
does, yes,
plan.
yes,
Yes.
our current provider. And, you know, speaking with employees over the summer, especially those that are returning the last like week or so, that we've gotten positive feedback from employees that we've spoken to that they liked having the Cigna plan with the OAPIN. So when they were traveling out of state or visiting family members or, you know, on vacation, that they can just go to the app, find where the nearest provider was that accepted Cigna, which is completely different than Florida Blue, because once you leave that in-network, even you could be in different parts of Florida and they don't provide it, you know, in Tallahassee and the Panhandle. So we'll definitely do that, but just want to state the benefits that our current provider of Cigna has compared to the previous one.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Ms. Pritchett?
Yeah, also, when you're looking at St. Lucie, how much they give to their employees, I believe it's about $2,500 less than we give our employees.
Yeah.
6,500 we give, and I believe St. Lucie is about 4,000.
Sure. So I think what we'll do is we'll come back with you with like the board contribution per your request, but then also the health savings account as well, because
Right.
our board contributes $750 towards health savings account. And so that's a number to keep in mind as well.
Which is a huge advantage to our employees, especially because our healthier employees tend to go to the high deductible because it's a zero cost to employees, to the employee only.
Yeah.
And to have that $750 as a cushion, which continues to roll over time, that they can take with them if they ever even leave the district, that money stays with them.
Yeah, and that was a positive, we got some positive feedback last week when we were at NEO, a new educator orientation, because we have like kind of two types of employees at NEO that we speak to. Those that are fresh out of college, that are on their parents' insurance, and their parents are like, you need to go get a job and get your own medical insurance. So they were really happy that we had a zero cost plan, because that way it didn't take anything out of their paycheck, but also we had to explain to them the benefits of the health savings account. So those younger employees were happy. And then the employees that were coming from other districts who had a health savings account, they were really happy that we had that option, that the board contributed, and that we have the ability through HSA Bank, who is the district's health savings account provider through Cigna, that they can roll over things into one account with HSA Bank, or if they just want to cash out, use their old HSA provider. So they liked having the options there, so definitely.
Wonderful. Okay, are there any other questions? All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 2.02. Excuse me. Legislative advocacy platform discussion. Ms. Pritchett, I'll let you lead this.
So you should have before you the contributions that some of our board members gave to this legislative advocacy platform discussion. And I'm wondering if anyone has any questions about them, or are there things that jump out at you? Do you want me to read them all? What the proposed priorities that were submitted, or do you want to just have a discussion? I'm not sure how you want me to operate it. I'm happy to read them if you want. Chair. Do you want me to read the priorities that were submitted?
What's the pleasure of the board? Sorry.
That's okay.
I was looking it down. I
I'm fine.
apologize.
Do you want me to read them and then we can have a discussion?
Sure.
Okay. So the ones that were submitted were, number one, an increase to the base student allocation, full funding of the Safe Schools allocation, modernization of the exceptional student education funding formula to more accurately reflect the actual costs associated with serving students with disabilities, relief from Department of Children and Families DCF licensure requirements for school districts that provide voluntary pre-K, VPK programs, and revisions to student transportation eligibility language to address circumstances beyond the current 2-mile requirement, including student travel routes that require crossing a federal highway of more than 4 lanes. And then approval of these priorities will guide the district's advocacy efforts during the upcoming legislative session and support continued advancement of student achievement, school safety, and operational effectiveness.
So I can speak to item number 4, which is relief from DCF licensure requirements. I feel strongly, this will allow our VPK programs to offer wraparound care for families, because right now, 4-year-olds, if we don't carry a DCF license, they're the one group that we have to get a DCF license in order to provide those wraparound care services. So we are exempt at every other level of childcare, so this is just a natural change. And then one other that I think is worth pursuing, continuing pursuit of, is alternate ways for students to meet graduation requirements through different tests, whether it be through industry certifications, offering multiple ways for a student to graduate. And I am not opposed to, when we get down to the end, if we know a student is not going to meet every graduation requirement, being able to offer the GED on our traditional high school campuses so that they are leaving high school with something. Because what we know is that if they leave without a diploma and just a certificate, the likelihood of them coming back to finish something, their high school education, which, there's a lot of things that are set in motion when a student does not graduate with a traditional high school diploma or a GED. I think we will hear talk this session more about a workforce diploma as well. Obviously, that's not going to be this year, but in the future, having a specific workforce type of diploma. So that's just part of that conversation. Okay, Ms. Roberts.
Yeah, so I support the alternative graduation requirement, and I think that's something that I do think, especially with the new commissioner, that's going to get a lot of attention there. As far as the DCF licensure relief, I think we need to get the statute citation. So I started to look. I didn't find exactly what we needed, but Marcia, maybe
Oh, we have it.
you
Yeah,
have
I
it, so you'll know
Yes.
exactly which statute it is we're looking for.
Yes.
So that we know exactly what it is we're looking for the
To
amendment
change.
piece of. So
Yes.
if Marcia can get that. yes, I submitted that one. I also submitted the transportation language, and I want to back off of the transportation language a little bit, because I'd asked, and the superintendent is getting the information that has by elementary, middle, and high school, the number of the students that live within the 2-mile radius that would have to, so if you're outside of the 2 miles, you get the transportation anyway, but if you're inside of the 2 miles and you're expected to walk, if we know what that population is, so if we know what the number is, because I really don't think it's going to do any good to ask for something that, in our case, it may be, knowing that they don't pay 100%, but in our case, if it's going to cost the state $1 million to take care of us, and then it's going to cost us another $500,000 to throw in for that. But that million, when you multiply it across all of the districts, is really a very hefty ask in order to go down that road. And I don't think we want to, knowing that, whether you want to call it a categorical or what, knowing that those are never 100% funded to begin with, I don't think we want to be the one that's trying to, hey, we've got this problem, we're only looking for $1 million, but that $1 million that you're giving us is going to cost everybody else $100 million, I think is going to be a major problem, and I'm not interested in that. So I think we need some more information about the population that we're talking about and get some costs on that. Thank you.
Well, and to your point, Ms. Roberts, I think it's really important costs across all districts, because what it will cost us in Martin County just for kids crossing a 4-lane road in Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade will be probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So
Yeah,
we need to.
And I think if we get it so that we know what the cost is for us, it's pretty easy through FSBA, for FSBA to get the data from all the districts to find out what the cost would be across the board, to kind of determine, as they're coming up with their platform, to kind of determine whether that's where you want, the eggs that you want to put, that's the basket you want to start sticking your eggs in or not, so. But I think it would be helpful if we just know from our perspective, this is what the cost piece looks like. So then when we're talking to FSBA and working on that platform, we would know what that is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Pritchett?
Oh, no.
Okay, Dr. Moriarty.
So before I share my thoughts on these priorities, I'm just curious, because this is only my second time doing this. Are we just putting our pie in the sky of what we're looking for, or are we taking into account kind of what Ms. Roberts was getting at in terms of cost and gettability, and how, like if something is easily attainable, should that be like a higher priority, or if it's just like a total long shot, should we not really go down that route, or if it needs a lot of funding? I'm just curious, because usually when we do lobbying in the chiropractic world, we try to put up our best and sometimes our easiest goals, because they might be considered versus some long shots that might be wasting a spot. So I'm just curious, are we going down that route with these, or just putting anything, or anyone have any thoughts?
Well, I personally believe we have to consider what the cost is, not just to Martin County, because a lot of these will not be specific to our community. It will be a statewide issue. So money is always an issue. So to Ms. Roberts' point, take into, like when I look at full funding of the state schools allocation, there is not a single allocation that is fully funded. Across every single bucket of money that we get, there is not an allocation that is ever fully funded. There's always, but that is the amount of money that you must spend on safe schools, or that you must spend only on transportation. It was never meant to be the only dollars that you spend. So, but yes, we do have to take that into consideration.
All right, and then if I may, Madam Chair.
Of course.
So like the 5 that are up there, it looks like they're all about funding. So personally, I would like to diversify. I really like what Chair Powers said about the flexible graduation requirements for CTE. I think that would be a great pathway to include in there. Also maybe student attendance strategy, about addressing chronic absenteeism and when we can intervene. I believe that was a priority last year. That, again, is not based on funding, but if you have to be in school to be successful. And when kids are not in school, and I believe it's 10 absences before we can intervene, maybe the superintendent can clarify that. But, looking at lowering that number to where we can intervene when there's clearly an issue with attendance, and that wouldn't take any funding. So those would be my two. The sheet looks good. I think the transportation one is kind of a long shot due to funding. I think it's a good idea, and it's very appropriate to our district, but looking at it statewide, I think that would be a big ask, as well as the safe schools. So I'd agree with Chair Powers on that one. And then obviously the base student allocation increase is a high priority as well. Thanks.
So are you, number 4, which is the relief from DCF, that doesn't cost us anything?
It's just language.
And we already started that conversation last year, so it's kind of a continuation, as well as the alternative graduation requirements. There was a lot of, I've already started having, with our advocacy group, having conversations with the new incoming House staff, because that's changed. We had support in the Senate, and now we need support in the House. So we've already kind of started those conversations. So this is like a continuation of really 2 prior sessions. So having this, we're hoping this will be the year for the alternative graduation requirements. I'm not opposed to tightening up the attendance requirements and tightening up the statute in what the authority of the school district is and when we can intervene. We'll just need to know what that is. I think that's a statewide issue that we need to bring to FSBA. Amy, if you want to bring that up to FSBA and see what their appetite is, because I think attendance is a statewide issue, it's not a Martin County issue, so maybe we can see if they're interested in taking that on. Ms. Roberts?
So talking about attendance, so the rule for attendance, and I guess I'm looking to Dr. Estevez, the rule for attendance is when we must intervene, correct? It doesn't mean that we can't intervene sooner. So I think that maybe besides what the FSBA does and what the state does, which of course we would support, perhaps we need to ask our superintendent to come up with some plan or some program for an earlier intervention, a procedure and a process to do an earlier intervention that we can go ahead and implement locally. And if we did that locally, then we're at least, as the state is wandering around trying to figure out what to do on a global area, at least we're addressing our issues more locally. So I think if that's something that should go there. I agree with you that the 2 that are language 4 and then the alternative graduation are both language things, which I think we should continue. As far as the transportation piece, I just really want to get those numbers so that when that gets kicked to FSBA, we have the numbers in order to do it. The safe school allocation, I've looked at the formula on the FEFP for how they come up with that. I don't think they're going to change that at all. I mean, they may throw extra money at it, but their first 100,000 and then based on a per student basis, et cetera, I don't see that that's going to be anything any different. The ESC funding, I think that's a larger question. That's a question that, it sounds, you can understand it from a high level look that, that we need the correct classifications for the correct students. You can understand that, but it really goes to the weighting system of the students, and I think that it starts to impact the whole FEFP and kind of goes down a whole rabbit hole that starts to get really confusing. And I think unless we're pretty small compared to the rest of the state, unless we're planning on doing the heavy lifting for that, I think it's really something beyond our scope of trying to, we can come up with our stats of people that are between a 201 and a 203, but we're a drop in the bucket compared to what everybody else is. So that whole FEFP weighting thing, I think, is kind of a...
Yeah, and I really think that that's going to have to be a discussion with DOE staff, before we.
You go anywhere, yeah.
Before we go anywhere, is this a statewide issue? How do they have suggestions for improving it? And then we can take that information and advocate for the change.
Yeah.
Ms. Russell?
I support the workforce diploma and the DCF licensure relief, I think, so that we can provide our wraparound services for our VPK families, because that's a huge need. But I think it's really important that we pick our top 3 and that we prioritize those, because you give these bullet points and you end up losing them by the 4th and 5th one. So I think that the ones that we deem most important to us as a board, we need to prioritize those and put those at the top.
So as far as I'm concerned, it would be alternative graduation requirements, just because we worked on this for multiple years now, and I think we're almost to the finish line to get something that is beneficial for our students. And then the DCF exemption for VPK students in public schools. And I could also support if we came up with something we needed to change in attendance, but I think those would be my top 2 outside of the priorities of FSBA in supporting that. Ms. Roberts?
I would be more interested in the third one being something that's very Martin County specific, since we do have Greg. So whether that has something that's uniting the robotics piece, whether that has an expansion to robotics programming or something, but something that we can package in a way that we are not, whether it's money or whatever, but we're not trying to do something that we're trying to hit everybody in the state, that it's very specific to us. I look at Sarasota County that I think did their aviation piece, and other counties have done, I think Brevard also did something that was very specific to them, which doesn't impact everybody else, but I think that Greg is very good at that. I mean, Murray Middle School, the referendum work, I mean, that kind of stuff. So I mean, I think that that's something that if we had a piece, and right off the top of my head, the robotics piece is the thing that comes to mind for that.
Well, and I agree with you. If there's going to be a dollar ask specific to Martin County, we need to figure out what that is going to be now. And I think that Martin County is in a good position with the new leadership that's coming in. So I think we have, we're in a good position if we wanted to ask for something to enhance a program or 2. I don't know. If we wanted to, I think we have to ask, if we're going to ask for an appropriation, we ask for 1.
Yes.
How we disperse that across multiple programs, or, so I'm looking at the superintendent to say we need to come up with something, and we probably need to bring it back to our next meeting. So we can, because we're already starting to have those conversations with staff, even though the new leadership takes office the same time we do, November 17th, or we have our change in our leadership change. So, it's going to be full speed ahead after the 17th of November. So the more conversations we have now, the better.
So if I have consensus around those 3, I will have staff begin to work with Greg Black on language for the alternative pathways, building on what we've already come up with, the relief for the DCF licensure, and what is unique or specific to Martin County by way of an ask. That is.
Yes, and if we could have that for the board, if you have recommendations, or if a board member has a recommendation of a program that you see needs to be enhanced, or that we want to make the shining star of Martin County, that it's already successful, but we can make it even better, please let the superintendent know, because I would like to be able to talk about that, because Greg will be here on August 25th at our meeting. So if we could bring those, have those discussions with the superintendent before, and engage all of our staff to make recommendations, and then we can talk about that and what that looks like at our August 25th meeting. Is everybody good with that? Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Ms. Pritchett, did you have anything else? No. All right, perfect. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Moriarty?
And then I know it's always a fluid situation in Tallahassee, basically seeing how things go, and if a bill gets filed that piques our interest. So I'm good with what the superintendent said. I'm just curious are we allowed to change this at all? Is this at all a living document, or is this basically set in stone?
Well, we want to be certain that the issues that we're picking now are, yes, there may come, a bill may get filed that we may strongly oppose, that may have a negative impact, and we absolutely will use our resources, our collective resources to, work against it if it will negatively impact Martin County or schools in general. So there's a number of things that could happen. And, a lot of them don't make it to the very end. So we would advocate if it had a negative impact that it wouldn't make it to the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Roberts?
So in the separate programming piece that Superintendent Main is working on before we get to Greg Black, so that we'll have that. So my understanding is you will have a discussion with every board member, and we'll all have something ahead of time as to whether it's 2 options, 3 options, 1 option that you feel strongly about or something, so we have something that is kind of finite, that we know what the dollar amount is, and we know exactly what that piece looks like, so we know where we're going with that. That would be helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Greg's always been fantastic being able to talk those out. So if I'm able to bring to him 2 or 3 solid options, when Greg and I sit down with staff, he kind of has a lot of good quality questions that he kicks back, and then he may know of the 3 or the 2 that we submit, this is one that absolutely will have a higher percentage chance of getting across the finish line. So that'll be the way we work that.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to item 2.03, our school improvement update. No, not time certain at workshops. What, did you guys plan that?
All right, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Main, Lauren Gifford, Executive Director of School Improvement and Leadership. It is my pleasure to be here this afternoon along with my colleagues to present some school improvement updates to you all. As we get started, I want to orient you to where we were in March of last school year. We presented last to you our priority updates on our 6 priority schools. So it will be important for me to orient you to where we left off utilizing the same format and using Hobe Sound Elementary School as our example. This graphic may look familiar to you. This was the same type of graphic that was shared in March. Hobe Sound Elementary School was a priority school for us last school year, and they are the one school who was able to accelerate their achievement and move into the B school range. As you look at the data on the slide, you can see that the 428, which was the minimum cut score needed to move into the B school range, was more than achieved, as Hobe Sound Elementary moved from 414 points in 24-25 all the way up to 451 points in 25-26. Because of the acceleration that this school exemplified, it was important for our team to take a deep look into what worked for this school and also to be able to replicate across our other school sites some of the intentional work that was done here so that we're moving all of our schools along in the same direction. This slide should also look familiar to you too. I'll reorient you to this as well. This is the overall school grade snapshot for Hobe Sound Elementary School. A reminder that our elementary schools are graded on 8 different components that you see displayed here across the left-hand side. On the top right, you'll notice there's a key there to help you navigate through some of the numbers. Anything that has a strike through indicates that this is lagging data from 24-25 PM3. Underneath it, you'll see 25-26 PM3 data. And in addition, you'll see in parentheses, color-coded, green if this particular achievement area increased, and red if it decreased. When you take a look at the left-hand side, you can clearly see that Hobe Sound Elementary School had a tremendous amount of success across the 8 components, increasing in every single one, with the exception of mathematics and the bottom quartile learning gains. On the right-hand side, you can see the school year, the number of points Hobe Sound earned, and then the percentage of points and the school letter grade attached. So in 25-26, Hobe Sound Elementary increased by 37 points, moving them to 56%, up 4 percentage points to that B school status. One thing that will be important to note throughout our presentation today is that the school grade has now increased. I'm happy to provide you with that information if you have not seen that yet, but the scales have been adjusted to make it a little bit more rigorous. So you will see that in some of our schools' data, although progress was made, it's raising the bar and extending the number of points needed moving into the school year for 26-27. One of the most important things about school improvement is that schools look for their, what I like to call their big rocks, or their areas of focus that they intentionally plan and work around. It is important that although there are many moving parts and pieces to school improvement, you can't focus on all of the things. However, naturally, some of the other elements will improve tucked under some of the main focus areas. So looking at Hobe Sound Elementary School, these were their 3 priority areas: ELA learning gains for bottom quartile, math learning gains, and science. This slide should look fairly familiar too, as these were some of the priorities that Hobe Sound Elementary School put into place last school year, building on the success that we saw in their end-of-year data. You'll also notice that there are bolded items here. So what's important is that Hobe Sound, who experienced tremendous improvement, they're not going to take all of this out, replace it with something brand new. We want to continue building on the success that's already paved the foundation for them. However, in knowing that now this school needs to move to an A school, what can they really double down on and leverage to continue that upward trajectory? So just highlighting some of these things for you under bottom quartile learning gains, really the development and implementation of strategic MTSS intervention plans for Tier 2 and Tier 3 students that lead into small group instruction, continuing those data chats and starting those earlier, having students set goals and tracking their own progress, their own ownership in the learning. For math, really strategizing on the professional learning and support for IXL, particularly for intervention programming, support planning, and again, weaving in that goal-setting opportunity for students. Continuing ESE on-site coaching support and scaffolding to help move bottom quartile, as well as regular learning gains for all students. And then looking across at science, continuing site-based site-based and school district coaching supports for benchmark-aligned instruction and planning support, and really capitalizing on those spiral reviews, starting that earlier in the school year to review those key benchmarks and standards and vocabulary. What you'll notice through the presentation this evening is you will see some duplication across school sites as they were working on some similar items, and we want to continue schools implementing those items that were successful. However, given the nature of each school being slightly unique and individual in their own right, there are going to be some school site-specific things that will look different throughout the presentation. So this was a little bit of a recap of Hobe Sound Elementary School, who is no longer going to be a priority school as they've moved up, but they will still be on our radar. Are there any questions before I move into the next section? Okay. So introducing our priority schools for the 26-27 school year, you'll recognize the 5 elementary schools that are listed up here. They will continue on as priority schools this year, so we want to continue that support and leverage some of the systems that have already been put into place to get them to that next marker of the B school. And then in addition, you'll see we have 2 middle schools that are added for secondary. As Dr. McMahon will highlight shortly, they did have a little bit of a decline in their overall achievement status, so we want to make sure that we're prioritizing them and moving them along in the right direction. So I'll be starting by highlighting Pinewood Elementary School. Again, as you look at the graphic for Pinewood, you can see in 25-26, the school did have a decline of 11 points in the scale score, moving them a little bit further away from the anticipated B school range. It's important to take a look at the individual schools and the different components to take a deep dive to really understand what's happening across the school. When you look at Pinewood's school grade snapshot, you can see that there are successes in their data. They showed improvement in about half of their overall learning components, as well as they had a couple areas that stayed about the same. What really sticks out for Pinewood Elementary School is that box that's labeled learning gains of lowest quartile for mathematics, where there was a decrease by 20 percentage points. That really was the piece that took Pinewood back a little bit. If that had been stronger, it probably would have tipped them over into the B school range. Moving into this school year, Pinewood is going to need 37 points in order to accelerate and reach the lowest end of the B school slide. The identified big rocks for improvement for Pinewood will continue around ELA achievement, ELA learning gains, bottom quartile, as well as science. Pinewood implemented for ELA across the board, AVID, for their first year. So they're really going to double down on some of the AVID strategies, particularly on incorporating writing as part of collaboration and engagement strategies across classrooms. Again, more on-site by school district office, as well as support from the state regional literacy director to provide professional learning on the science of reading, which is really that foundational piece that all teachers need to understand how students learn to read in order to set them up for success. Bottom quartile learning gains, again, kind of capitalizing on the work of Hobe Sound as well, is really that strong development and implementation of MTSS intervention plans for Tier 2 and Tier 3 students, in addition to utilizing all hands on deck, all coaches, administration, paraprofessionals, providing targeted additional small group instruction for students. And then in science, although Pinewood stayed really at about the same point, they're going to continue to provide within their schedule opportunities for small group intervention and support ongoing throughout the year to ensure that some of the previous grade level standards are addressed, remediated, and strong moving into assessment season. And again, the spiral review focused on the key benchmarks and standards for science, starting that work sooner in the school year. Any questions about Pinewood?
Yeah, so I guess this is going to be a Paige McMahon question. So when I'm looking at your 8 components on page 7, and I see that one of your, and I do appreciate the work that's been done at Pinewood. I mean, that's not lost on me and the gains that you all have made, so I do want to say a shout out to that. But then to Paige, in mathematics, the lowest gains of the learning gains of the lowest 25, that isn't one of your target areas for, you're not considering that a big rock? I mean, I realize that you need 37 points. Are you figuring that since we lost those points, we're automatically going to
So
page?
I can kind of speak to that, and if you want to.
I can add to it when you're done.
Okay. So this is really built off the key priority areas from last school year. They're going to continue this work because really we have to keep all of these things juggling in the air. But looking at Pinewood, absolutely, they will be having an additional focus on the bottom quartile learning gains for math because that was the biggest area of need. And Dr. McMahon, if you want to.
Sure. So the bottom quartile learning gains for math was actually our weakest area across the district in our district grade component. And to address that at the elementary level, we are excited to introduce a second intervention block to their master schedules. So students who require intervention in both ELA and math now have an opportunity to receive both. And if they only have a need in math, then that's 2 opportunities that they could receive additional remediation. And those bottom quartile students could absolutely receive the learning that they may be missing and the extra practice to help them achieve those learning gains.
Okay, so when I looked at, when I pulled elementary and pulled the math components, the 3 math pieces, I did see what you're talking about. So what you're telling me is that the math push-in is going all across all 12?
Yes, all of our
Elementary, so
elementary
that's why it's
schools will
not a-
now have 2 intervention
Okay.
blocks, yes.
Thank you. I
Or they
understand
could
that.
be used as enrichment, so it is
Yeah.
versatile to meet the needs of our students across the district.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and moving on to Port Salerno Elementary School. Looking at their graph, you can see in 24-25, they were at 393 points, and moving into 25-26, they achieved 420 points, getting very, very close to that 428 threshold to move into the B school territory. Taking a more intensive look at the overall school grade snapshot, you can see that there were a lot of bright spots and successes in the school's data indicated by the increases in green. They did have a couple of areas that stayed the same with no change, and the one area that declined was mathematics learning gains. When you look at Port Salerno, for example, for their points needed to move into B school range, they will need 436 points moving into this school year, so 16 points, which is very doable. And then continuing to look at their focused areas, their big rocks, one of the things that they're going to double down on this year is the development of the individual learning plans for all students that are identified in that bottom quartile, knowing every student's name, knowing the data, and really mapping out uniquely instructionally what each of those students need to be successful and continue to make growth. In addition to implementing targeted small group instruction structures for bottom quartile students. Over in math learning gains, again, as Dr. McMahon had mentioned, the universal supports with the intervention block will be there, but also taking a stance by the data that's provided through IXL and the platform and crossing that with any other additional progress monitoring data to provide analysis and support progress monitoring and small group instruction for intervention needs for those students. And then moving into the science category, planning and coaching supports really focused on that content vocabulary with opportunities to extend the learning through science lab alignment, so more opportunity for hands-on instruction, putting those skills and concepts in front of students and bringing those to life. And again, you'll see consistent across most schools, starting that spiral review a little bit sooner this year to focus on key benchmarks and standards.
Ms. Roberts, did you have a question?
And the numbers are very, very impressive, and I really appreciate the work. I noticed that your rocks are the same, which I think is good. You're using the same rocks that we had used, the low 25 for ELA, the low 25 for math, and also the science, which I think it's quite remarkable the amount of growth that was done in this last year just to get to there from what it was the year before. So that's really very impressive, and I know that they're doing a lot of work out there, and it really shows. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Executive Director Moore, who will begin with Seawind Elementary School.
Thank you, Executive Director Gifford. Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Main, I am Daniel Moore, Executive Director of Academic Services, and I will guide you through the next 3 schools. So we will start with Seawind Elementary School, and as you can see on our graphic here, we did have a little bit of a slide at Seawind from 404 points to 396 points. As you may recall, heading into the end of semester 1, we did have some challenges with Seawind with staffing and student achievement. There wasn't a lot of growth between PM1 and PM2, and we were very concerned that Seawind was going to land in the D range instead of the C range, and so we deployed all resources, no cards left on the table, and had our coaches pushing into classrooms to teach where we didn't have teachers, and we did see some significant improvement in the second semester with additional supports deployed, but it wasn't quite enough to get us there. And so looking at where we landed, they earned 8 points fewer than they did in 24-25, which is a 1% difference in percent of points. Consistently across our district, we see bottom quartile losses in the double digits, and that holds true here in ELA. We did see some improvement in math learning gains at the bottom quartile, which is one of the schools that did move up in that area, and so there were some wins, but the learning gains areas were where we saw the most deficiencies in our accountability metrics. And so moving into 26-27 with our increased escalator clause target for the grade of a B, we will now need 40 points. So looking at what Seawind needs, ELA achievement across the board, which does include learning gains, is going to be a key priority area, specifically continuing the development with our state regional literacy director in partnership with our coaches and site-based coaches to really focus professional learning for teachers on the science of reading. It's those foundational reading skills that have been the challenge and is what has really prevented us from getting over those humps specifically in achievement and learning gains in ELA. Moving into this next school year, we're going to start the year with tracking tools that we started to implement at the end of last year, once we were able to really target where the issues were and use those to help guide small group, very targeted instruction to recover those foundational skills that are missing. Math learning gains, specifically the bottom quartile, we want to capitalize and continue moving with the progress that we had there. Some of the big areas of focus will be continued work with ESE, on those scaffolds for building thinking classrooms, small group planning, and grouping for small groups specific to those groups. They do have a large ESE population, and we want to make sure that all students are provided for with the tools they need to be successful. We'll also continue our supported implementation of IXL intervention, support planning, and student goal setting tools. And so one of the things that we struggled with at Seawind last year was maximizing the capabilities of our IXL programming. At some schools we saw tremendous growth when implemented with fidelity and consistency, and that is something we're going to continue to work with teachers at Seawind and leaders at Seawind on implementing those tools and resources to drive student achievement. And then one of the items you will see across almost every single one of our priority schools is a continued effort to improve our Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention through MTSS. This is a process that we really started to hit our groove in the fourth quarter, halfway through the second semester. A ground-up rebuild, excellent work from our Student Services Department, and we've been working hand-in-hand with Student Services and academics curriculum specifically to make sure that those systems are in place and that the interventions used during those systems are appropriate. And so when we talk about bottom quartile, that is your Tier 3 kids and sometimes your Tier 2 students, and we want to make sure that we're hitting all of their needs through very targeted, clean, streamlined systems. And then science, we have 2 big focus areas. One of them, which I think you've seen on every single one of these, is our supported delivery of our spiral review. And so that was district developed last year and sent to schools in semester 2. But as you know, the 5th grade science test, it is your smallest end count group, smallest number of students impacting a component. And it's the easiest one to move, but it also measures 3 different grade levels. So it's 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. And so focusing on recovering the 3rd and 5th grade standards that may not be fresh in our students' minds is what this spiral review is designed to do, and brings back those key benchmarks and standards to help maximize achievement on that metric specifically. The next school is Warfield Elementary School.
Wait.
Oh, do we have questions on that one?
So, so the 40 points you need, I don't want to focus too much on points, but the 40 points you need to get a B, 20% of those points are because of the classification and because of the escalator, correct?
Yes.
Because normally you wouldn't need the additional 8 points if you were using the other scale. So that's,
Yeah, the escalator clause does move it up to the next
kicks in
0
and
or
then
5,
moves that
yeah.
goalpost a little bit. Okay, yeah. Thank you very much.
All right, Warfield Elementary School. So this is one of our success stories. Very proud of the work at Warfield Elementary. As you can see, 3 years of consistent growth. In 23-24, they were a D school, moving up to a C school at a 335 and now at a 358, moving ever closer towards the B range. As we see at other schools, our bottom quartile math is the area and that most schools took double-digit declines. And so had we maintained even 0 growth and just stayed flat in our bottom quartile gains, we would have moved many of these schools into B status. And so that will continue to be a priority area for us. But as you can see, 2 of the 3 priority areas for Warfield last year saw significant gains, 9 and 10%. A strong focus on English language arts and strong systems for the students at Warfield generated an impressive 23-point gain, which yields 3%. Moving into 26-27 with the goalposts continuing to always move a little further away and raise the bar, we now need 78 points. It's a big lift, but I do think it is achievable with some tailored and specific strategies and tools for Warfield Elementary. So as you will notice, you see the word ELL jump out a lot on this particular slide. Warfield does have our highest English language learner population, and many of the systems implemented there last year saw significant returns on investment. For a school that is at a high English language learner population, to see significant growth in English language arts across 3 of your 4 ELA components is impressive, and so we want to continue leaning into that work. Specifically, ELA achievement 3rd grade, similar to 5th grade science, this is a low N count or small student population metric because it's only 1 grade level of students, and we're going to continue the work that we implemented there to grow those students as they come out of 2nd grade into 3rd grade, where they count not only for overall school ELA achievement, but also specifically for 3rd grade ELA achievement. And so in 25-26, great partnerships with school site coaches, district coaches, and our state regional literacy director to build professional learning focused on the science of reading, those foundational skills. One of the things that we learned navigating last year is that unlike many of our other elementary schools, our students at Warfield are a little further behind. And so in that 3rd grade cohort, you have a large number of students who are 2 or more years behind grade level. And so they're not, on the 2nd grade level or 1st grade level. We have many students that are at the kindergarten or emerging into 1st grade level coming into 3rd grade. And so we're going to introduce using our UFly foundational literacy lessons that we use in K-1-2 to improve student achievement through recovery of those foundational reading skills that typically, honestly, plague students throughout their academic career when they don't have them. And so adding that layer in with support from our regional literacy director and our school site and district coaches will help continue to push that 3rd grade metric up, as well as our overall ELA metric up as well. And then using specific tracking tools for 3rd grade, because it is a little different from 4th and 5th grade on what we're measuring and what we're trying to recover. And so we'll have specific tools implemented that we started to implement last year, but we'll continue to refine this year. ELA learning gains is the other focus area. A key element of what I believe pushed a lot of the success at Warfield was teacher capacity, teachers understanding their data, teachers talking about data with students, setting goals, being very clear on the steps it takes to get to achievement, and continuing that instructional focus while using that data and having those student data chats and setting clear goals to identify a clear focus, clear scaffolds, and using very specific strategies with fidelity walkthroughs from their administration to make sure that all those key foundational pieces are happening and moving. And then ELA learning gains bottom quartile, very similar to how we're going to continue to build on ELA across the rest of the school and all of our schools, is that focus on the MTSS process. Warfield made significant progress last year with their MTSS process at the school. I think some of you came out to one of our MTSS meetings and got to see everybody in action, and that's what we really want to see at all of our schools, is that collaboration between school site leaders, coaches, teachers, and district personnel to make sure that every student's getting what they need when they need it so that we can move them forward. So we'll continue that focus specific to improve gains. And one of the things that Warfield's doing in 26-27 is reassigning some of their personnel and what they do during the day. And so I didn't bold this one, but they are redefining or modifying how they deploy their ELL paraprofessionals to better support students, and also reassigning their support facilitators to deepen that instructional impact and strengthen relationships. Any questions about Warfield?
Ms. Roberts, did you have anything?
Yeah, so it's very, very impressive. I mean, the 25 points and 2 years ago, then 23 points this year. And I think those are some foundational skills, and I really appreciate the work that's being done to not leave anybody behind and to make sure that everybody has something. And I just wanted to check in with you guys that, you three, that in the mid-year, like in March or something, I mean, I don't want anybody to get scared by the 78 points, because I don't want us to be chasing a grade when we're trying to build foundational skills. So when we get to March, or whenever that midterm piece is, you'll be giving us an assessment back then, again, that's showing us where you think you are based on the IXL monthly pieces, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and J.D. Parker is the last one that I will present before I turn it over to Dr. McMahon. So J.D. Parker is a fascinating case study. And so throughout the year, when we started with our first instructional rigor walk, we knew we had work to do. We deployed coaches. We had specific district leadership personnel assigned as liaisons. We worked very closely with teacher teams through PLCs, through professional learning, through specific coaching to their leadership team. And as the year progressed, we saw significant improvement, not only through our rigor walks, but also through our IXL snapshot tracking that we do every month. The decline, honestly, was surprising. We expected J.D. Parker to be our Cinderella story. And our alarm bells went off a little bit when our May snapshot data came in from IXL, and it showed the only decline all year long. And so we saw consistent improvement, consistent gains, and then in May, a significant drop. And so we are not exactly sure what happened between April and May for those gains to suddenly drop, but it also was reflected in our school grade data. As you can see, they dropped significantly in the 25-26 school year from a 401 to a 362. And so this is a 39-point drop. Again, as consistent across many of our schools, it's our bottom quartile learning gains that need to be a continued focus, a renewed focus, to ensure that we're continuing to push our schools. We didn't see any improvement in any of our accountability metrics across J.D. Parker. And so as we dug into the data, looked back at our walkthrough and evaluation data, looking at what we saw during site visits for targeted support and for intervention training, we think we identified two of the three issues. One of them is the learning gains. Students didn't move. The other piece is really enrichment for the students that are at that level 3 or above, being able to move to make those learning gains, or being able to move from that level 2 to that level 3. And so for ELA learning gains, which will also impact ELA achievement, is the development of individual learning plans for all students in bottom quartile. Like, we have to move those students, and as we saw in the data, they just didn't move. And so our goal is to make sure we have targeted small group instruction for those bottom quartile students, working closely with the new leadership team and our school district coaches, as well as their on-site coaches at J.D. Parker. We will continue to work with our state regional literacy director to make sure we have resources and tools to help best meet the needs of those students. But ultimately, it's going to come down to what's happening in that small group, how we're training teachers to deliver that small group, and how we're training our leaders to monitor that small group. Math achievement, continuing to do weekly walkthroughs with coaching support to strengthen math instruction. We saw some good things in semester 2. I think when we started to see the improvements, we really didn't get up to that grade level standard until we were entering quarter 4. And so while we were excited about the continued growth, it took a whole year to get to the standard of where they needed to be at each grade level. And so continued leadership support with not only our academics team, but also the school site leadership team, to make sure that we're in classrooms and seeing what we can do to better support them and provide targeted support for teachers. And then specific interventions for struggling learners in specific subgroups. And so with our federal percent of points index and our ESSA subgroups, some of these groups are getting up there in numbers and amount of years in that category. And so Concurrently, we'll be focusing on specific subgroups while implementing systems across the board to make sure that we're not only moving us out of C status, but also moving us out of that ESSA status. And then again, as consistent across many schools, a strong focus on the MTSS process and those intervention plans for Tier 2 and Tier 3 students, which is a joint collaborative effort across departments here at the district with our partners at schools. And then finally, our math learning gains. And so targeted intervention for students below proficiency, that's going to be the key for J.D. Parker. We have students that are behind, that have significant deficits, significant gaps. Looking at where those holes are, it's foundational skills, both in English language arts and in mathematics. And so being very specific on what interventions we're introducing to students aligned to what their actual needs are, while aligning that with the subgroup needs we also have for ESSA. Continuing our work with our IXL diagnostic data, and so we did have some challenges with J.D. Parker on getting our complete snapshot data throughout the year, and so it may have given us some false reads when we had a low percentage of students completing or only certain populations of students completing, and so we're going to start the year with 95% plus completion so that we have a really accurate picture of where students are performing, where those gaps are, and then building skill plans around those gaps to move them forward, which feeds into our targeted intervention supports for students below that proficiency level, which includes the ESE students in that ESSA subgroup.
So I don't know how many new teachers we have at J.D. Parker this year. So I'm sure somebody knows that. But my concern is that, that in order to be able to do the student data identification, in order to do the small group piece, that probably, I'm assuming that you all have that under control and that you guys are going to go and work and make sure that the identification piece happens at J.D. Parker in particular?
Yes, absolutely, and across all schools. So
Right.
with our new Power BI capabilities, we have new dashboards that take work that last year would have taken me and Paige a week or 2 weeks to put together specific data reporting for all schools, that at the push of a button, they have an entire list of their bottom quartile students, what ESSA subgroups they're in, what the specific standard deficiencies are. And so with our move as a district to Power BI, we do have the ability to provide that data reporting and that clarity of which students need attention and what attention they need much more quickly.
Right, but I'm looking specifically, since you don't have Big Rocks listed as the low 25 at J.D. Parker, I think it's important that whoever you have that's new at that school, whichever teachers you have that are new, that they know how to look at and analyze their data, and that they're given some extra help with that so that they can exactly see, because I see everybody nodding their head, that we know that that's a lot of what it takes, is being able to identify the students and exactly what they need. And my concern is that, not so much a concern, but if we're not considering that a big rock, it could become a big rock if we're not paying attention to it. But if we actually help those new teachers to understand and look at their data, I think it'll be a big help.
That's
Thank you.
a big part of the pre-planning work that all of the schools have embarked on thus far, is like going over the school grade calculations, so everyone is aware of how that works, and then also the identification of students on their roster, where they fell, how many points they need to move, what ESSA categories they fall in. So there's a lot of teaching and learning that takes place before the students even arrive on campus, so.
Right.
And continual learning.
Yeah, I think it is. And I know that, I think IXL is doing, it's a great data source, but it's only as good as it is if you know what it is you're looking at. If you don't know what it is you're looking at and you can't pull out the pieces you need from it, then it's just another piece. Yeah, thank you.
All right, good evening. Madam Chair, Superintendent Main, members of the board, my name is Paige McMahon. I am the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and it is my pleasure to present our 2 priority middle schools this evening. We're starting with Dr. David L. Anderson Middle School. As you can see here in this graphic, they had a slight drop from 516 points in the 24-25 year to 514 points at the bottom end of the B range. The snapshot for middle schools looks a little different from elementary school, as they are graded on 9 different components. The 3rd grade ELA achievement is no longer present on this board, but you will see instead a social studies category, as well as acceleration, which is derived from Algebra 1 and geometry achievement. So overall, Anderson had some wins and some losses. Primarily in the mathematics arena, they were excellent. Huge numbers in acceleration, which I know they were very proud of. That was definitely a success and something you'll see that we've built on in their Big Rocks for this year to come. They had some struggles across ELA with drops in the achievement, learning gains, and bottom quartile learning gains category, as well as that troublesome bottom quartile learning gains for math that we've seen across our elementary schools. Also a slight dip in science and a very small dip in the social studies category, which comes from our civics achievement. So they will need 67 points to attain an A in this coming school year. At Anderson, they have Big Rocks identified across the bottom quartile learning gains for ELA, bottom quartile learning gains for math, as well as science. This is really the year of ELA in Martin County. We are very excited to adopt brand new ELA curriculum across K-12, which is why you've probably seen slides that mention standards-based planning. We want to make sure we are using our new curricular resources and implementing them with fidelity. So that is a huge focus across every one of the schools in our district, but even more so at our priority schools. We want to continue to see ELA achievement, learning gains, and bottom quartile learning gains increase this year. We have some big goals, and that's going to definitely help us with some more rigorous and better aligned ELA instructional materials. Our coaches will continue to support them in implementing those with fidelity, with planned walkthroughs with administration, on-site coaches, as well as district leaders. So it's a true group effort to increase ELA across all of those components. At the math learning gains, bottom quartile, Big Rocks. I mentioned their acceleration was a huge win for Anderson last year. I think a big part of that was the implementation of a support class to support level 3 students who were placed in Algebra 1. They got an extra time to remediate any gaps they came in with and practice Algebra 1, which really did pay off in their math achievement as well as that acceleration category. So they're adding something similar this year to support incoming level 1 and 2 students who would fall in that bottom quartile in 6th and 7th grade. So they will now have a Foundations of Math class to serve as a Tier 3 intervention to give those students the extra remediation they need on grade level skills as well as prior grade level skills they're coming in with deficits for. Across science, we are excited to add IXL Science to 8th grade students. This is going to be a great tool to use for spiral review from day one. We actually have built into our pacing calendar suggested skills that will give students practice of the 6th and 7th grade content that they will also be assessed on when they take their state science assessment at the end of 8th grade. PENDA will continue to be used as an enrichment and a remediation source. And at Anderson, they are excited to integrate both reading and writing into science to get a little bit extra boost in both of those areas. Murray Middle School had a similar story. From 24-25 to 25-26, they experienced a small dip of 2 points from 518 to 516 points. Again, a mixed bag of outcomes. Theirs was actually almost the opposite of Anderson's. So Murray had some great achievement across the board in ELA, but they did struggle in math, and you'll see that they also had a struggle with acceleration, which, as I mentioned before, is linked to Algebra 1 and geometry. That's why all 4 of those things are red. A slight dip in science, and they had a considerable jump in social studies, which is definitely something to be proud of. They need 65 points this year to land in the A range. For Murray Middle School, they've identified Big Rocks from math achievement, math bottom quartile learning gains, and science. For math, you will see a lot more focus on small group instruction, not only at Murray, but across the district. I think our teachers have learned how to do that pretty well in ELA, but maybe not quite so much in math yet. That is definitely a focus for my team and something we look forward to seeing more of in our middle schools, particularly at Murray. That's the best way for students to remediate and build upon the on-grade level skills and even give them a little bit of enrichment if that is where their need lies. In the bottom quartile math learning gains category, they are also implementing a new Foundations of Math course to support the incoming students who struggle with math, particularly those who already fall in that bottom quartile group. So we're excited to see them support those students with an extra boost of math to give them more time for hands-on instruction and extra practice to help them achieve a level 3 or higher, hopefully. And for science, again, you'll see similar Big Rocks identified. They will also have IXL in 8th grade, as well as the PENDA program. And they are also going to be using reading and writing across science and I believe all the content areas because why not? If you're a strong reader, you're going to be better at reading across all content areas. Also at Murray, unique to them, they are very interested in letting data drive more of their science instruction, getting into their common assessments, backward planning to make sure they've instructed students on all the assessed benchmarks to come, and then using that data to analyze and create small groups for remediation after assessments. Are there any questions on Murray or Anderson? Sorry, I forgot to ask at the end of that one. No?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all very much.
Oh, sorry, I was going to turn it back over
Are
to
you- are
Executive
we
Director
done? Sorry.
Gifford.
Almost did. One more slide.
Okay.
So to wrap us up, for our 7 identified priority schools for the 26-27 school year, our team will be providing some unique support specific for these schools. This will include more frequent IRWs, those instructional rigor walks. We also will have opportunities to partner with Florida Department of Education, Region 4. They will be able to come out and provide planning sessions for our school sites, particularly around any SS subgroups that are problematic. We do have monthly administrator PLCs, and these schools will be able to have a smaller PLC group within themselves where they learn from each other's data. There are commonalities, as you've seen this evening, across the school sites where they can look at trending data and then plan around next instructional moves to take back and support their school staff. We will have something new, which will be Big Rock Reviews, which will turn into be mini datacoms. I know they're excited about it. This will give us an opportunity for schools to present kind of that formative temperature check before PM1 and 3, or between PM1 and 3, to see how things are going and give us a chance to calibrate supports, or if we need to go in a slightly different direction so we can course correct quickly. Also, rapid deployment of targeted supports following the IRWs, so really ensuring that there's not a delay once we're out for school sites. If there is additional coaching support needed or professional learning, that those supports are deployed immediately. Targeted ELA support and coaching with the State Regional Literacy Directory. You heard that theme across many of the schools. This would be particular to elementary school to help raise ELA achievement. I'll be working with school sites individually on leadership team meetings and coaching and making sure that there is a cycle of data review tied with the instructional walks that they're doing and expected to do weekly, and then tying that with the connection to the PLC planning so there's fidelity of implementation. And last but not least, we'll be doing some new principal residency days. So our 7 priority principals will have an opportunity to go out, meet, plan, and observe classrooms at different school sites to help leverage some of the areas that they're looking to improve. So we have an action-packed school year ready to go, and we're excited to begin. And I'd like to also thank all of our school administrators who are here behind us for being here for this evening, and also for the incredible work that they've done last school year and the excitement that they're bringing to move our schools forward in 26-27.
Thank you. Ms. Pritchett, you have a comment?
I want to thank all of you. This was such great information. You know, we celebrate our successes, but we're being transparent and accountable in noting the hard work that we have ahead of us. And I give all of you so much credit for what you're about to encounter, because it is a heavy lift. The big rocks, they're heavy. And I just give you all a lot of credit, and we need, while we are celebrating, we also need to be accountable for the areas that need improvement. And I know that this is going to happen. I see it, and I see it in all of your faces, and I really appreciate all the work you've done on this. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll just echo what Ms. Pritchett said. Thank you all so much, and thank you for being here tonight. I know you're sitting quietly in the audience, but we know the work that you've put in preparing for this new school year. And I'm just going to put in a plug for VPK, because what we know is that in Florida in general, only about half of our students across the state enter school ready to learn. In Martin County, it's a tad bit higher, but it's not high enough, and especially at these schools. But what we know is that of those 52% kids that are coming in to school ready, over 70% of them attended VPK. So please encourage your parents, especially if they have a sibling already attending one of our schools, to enroll their children in VPK, because it really does set them up for success down the road, and it's an easy way to get those kids enrolled in a high-quality learning opportunity right on our school campuses. So please get your parents to enroll their kids in VPK. But thank you all very, very much. Okay.
Madam Chair, if I can just, while we're transitioning.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is, the three of you relayed the data, and I appreciate you very much, but the individuals sitting in the chairs are the ones that are executing on the work daily. And so while it is a team effort from the district to the schools, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm looking at an incredibly dedicated group of individuals that I know is very hungry and on fire to make sure that we get these students everything that they need to succeed. I appreciate the comments from the board this evening on not chasing the school grade, but making sure that in Martin County, we are laying a strong foundation for what is to come, long-term sustainable growth. And I'm just very proud tonight of the governance team, from the level of accountability and pressure that the board has of me, because we want the district to continue moving and to be the very best, and that then trickles down to the school-based, to the district leaders and the school-based leaders, and then on to our teachers. So proud moment tonight, and just really proud of what is happening in the district, and thank you. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. We're going to take a really quick break, 5 minutes, and we will be right back. Okay, we are reconvening our meeting. Thank you all for your patience. We're now moving on to item 2.04 to review the superintendent's annual evaluation scoring metrics. Heather Platt.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Superintendent Main, members of the board. My name is Heather Platt, and I serve as the Director of Organizational Excellence and Strategic Alignment. Today, I am here to facilitate a workshop discussion regarding Superintendent Main's evaluation instrument for the 26-27 school year. My goal this afternoon is to gather your feedback and guidance on several key components so that I can bring a final evaluation instrument forward to the August 25th regular school board meeting. Essentially, we will focus on 3 areas: the overall format and structure of the evaluation instrument. We are going to look at domain 7, which focuses on district performance and student achievement, and then the process for determining the final evaluation rating. So inside your folders, you will find several documents that I will reference throughout our discussion today. So to begin, on the left-hand side of your folder, you have the current evaluation tool. So I provided you a copy of the current evaluation tool should you want to reference it or if you have any questions. But essentially, the current evaluation tool is comprised of 7 domains. So we're looking at board support, program delivery, financial stability, human capital and talent management, community, state, and public relations, professional skills and abilities, and district performance. So those are the 7 domains that are currently in place. And the scale is on the right side, so you can see what score would achieve an unsatisfactory, needs improvement, effective, or highly effective. So today, I'm not recommending that we change any of the domains. So you'll see that throughout the presentation. And I'm also not recommending at this time a change in the scale. So the first discussion in your folder on the right side, you have a copy of the slide that we're going to reference in just a minute, and it says discussion 1. But essentially, currently, the format. So each of you as school board members rate each individual indicator that is underneath the domain, and we have been rating it, or you have been rating it to the nearest 0.5, to the nearest half, which averages out to an overall domain score. So as you can see here, I just put in some arbitrary scores, but for domain 1 board support, it currently has 4 indicators. Each board member has rated the indicator, and then that rolls up to an overall average. At this time, feedback is specifically required for any indicator that is rated below a 2. So that's currently how you complete the evaluation.
So it said on the evaluation a 2.0 or below, not below a 2.0.
Correct, yes. 2.0
So,
or below.
so if it's a 2.0, which is effective, it shouldn't require a comment. If it's below effective, it should.
Yes.
So below a 2.0. And what about a perfect 3? How does everybody feel about that? If you're going to rate someone a perfect score, I think that needs a comment too. I'll be honest. It goes both ways.
All feedback is good feedback.
I did like the survey type, but I wanted the ability to comment under each one,
Indicator?
because a whole comment at the end of that section, but just being able to be specific to that point. Vice Chair Moriarty.
Is this the time to bring up where you do the nearest 0.5, and are we able to do 0.1 would be my suggestion, because I had a tough time between that 3 and 2.5 and 2. So that would be my thing, was 0.1 is what I'm looking for. If this
I
is the
want to
right
talk
time.
about that too,
Okay.
actually.
Go for it.
Yes.
Because I think they should be whole numbers. I think it should be 2s, 1, 2, 3, 0. If, because it's going to add up. So if somebody gives a 3 and somebody gives a 2, the average is going to be higher than a 2. I just don't think that all the points in the middle are necessarily, you're either highly effective or you're effective, or you need improvement or you're unsatisfactory.
So if I may, so for the format options, and that might help with the conversation around which way you all go, but what I did want to ask is with the format options, are we looking to keep Format A, which currently is the domain with the indicators listed, and then as Board Chair Powers was saying, you're essentially rating every indicator, which then rolls up to an overall, so to the point of keeping the whole number. Or we could look at a different format. If you're looking at Format B, would be instead of having those indicators, we would have what we call look-fors, which would give you like a plethora of look-fors that you might want to take into consideration as you determine an overall score. So instead of rating every single indicator, we would just have an overall score for the domain. Or then Format C would be not necessarily look-fors, but more of like a narrative form. In the narrative form, again, you would just rate one time. You would rate the domain once. So is there a preference of the board to maintain the indicators and like individual indicator ratings that roll up to an overall? Or to go more with just one score for the overall domain?
Ms. Roberts, you had a comment?
Yeah, so, so I agree that if you're at a 2 or if you're at a 3, you should have it below a 2, or if you're giving a 3 point. So this pertains to your format A, B, or C. I think if you're doing that, if somebody's perfect or if somebody's below a 2, that it warrants a comment. But if you did format A, so I'm asking Mrs. Powers what she means when she says that. If you're doing format A and you have 6 different components for the domain, and you had 2 of them below a 2 and 1 of them at a 3, does that mean you comment on the 3 and you comment on each of the individual ones? Or do you mean if your overall score, like?
No, I would comment on each individual domain. It's,
As
to
a
me,
domain or the indicators in the domain?
the indicators,
In
sorry.
the domain,
Yes.
okay.
So if I were to give, I can't imagine that I ever would, but if I were to give a 1 in something, obviously I would make a comment and it would be very clear why I gave a 1. And it would be very clear why I gave a 3.
Okay.
Because I think that's important to know what you're,
What's your
what you're
thought
not,
process?
what's not meeting expectations, but what you're doing really well, too. So I don't think it's fair to just give comments on one thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so then with that mindset, I would prefer to stay with format A, but I would also like to be able to give half points. So instead of just being a 0, 1, 2, 3, to be able to do a half on any of those things. Because you're going to end up in the 10th column anyway, when you average, unless you're averaging all the same number.
Exactly. And
So if you're-
this rubric is what will, so if you give 3, 3, 2, 2, you're going to fall into the highly effective
Yes.
category.
But I think you
So
should
you-
be able to give a 0, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3. I think we should be able to give the half steps in between, so that you're not exactly, you're between effective and highly effective. You know, you're better than effective because you've done something more than effective, but you've not quite reached the highly effective. Because otherwise, I'd always be saying, well, you're not highly effective, I'm just going to keep dropping you down to the effective piece, you know?
Moriarty.
So I would agree with Ms. Roberts and do Format A. And since I would love to see .1 and Ms. Chair Powers wants to see whole numbers, we could meet in the middle at Ms. Roberts at .5 where we are at. So Format A, .5.
I just think if you're going to give a half a point, you're going to have to explain what you mean.
Oh, I will.
Like,
Oh,
not
yeah.
just in, like, a
Okay, yeah.
2.5, like, what does that mean? What kind of feedback, like, what is going to push him over to be a 3?
Sure.
So, we just need to be, I think, we need to be very descriptive and give feedback, because if we don't give feedback, then it's a guessing game. So I typically comment on everything, and that's why I would like to see us comment, because if I'm going to give a 2, I want the superintendent to understand why, that it was that specific thing, but everything else is a 3. You know, that's why, you know, I just think we should be commenting on everything, honestly.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is Format A, maintain the indicators, but there's an opportunity to comment on each indicator based on the score. And then we would say anything below a 2, but then also a 3. And I think to your point, Mrs. Powers, is really feedback on everything. Is that what I hear you
Yes.
saying? And we're going to the nearest
I don't think you've heard from everybody.
half
Wait,
point.
Ms.
But
Russell-
I have not heard from everyone.
Ms. Russell
Yes,
has
Mrs.
a
Russell.
comment, please.
Yes.
No, it's good. I was patiently waiting. No, I do agree with the halves, only to even, to your point, Mrs. Powers, where you're talking about, oh, well, in this particular domain, I gave 3s, but then in this one, this particular one, I gave a 2.0 because he wasn't quite there yet. So then you wouldn't be able to rate the full domain a 3, because there would be that one that was catching you up. And so I would hate, but you might want to give him a 2.5 because he's better than that too. You know what I mean?
But I think that's just subjective, because what is a 2 compared to a 2.5? There is, I know, but there's no metric on here that says, oh, yeah, this is when you average them, it's going to come out to above a 2.5 because of the averages. And, I mean, this is how we rate. This is life scale right here. This is how, you know, you don't get an extra point. Well, I guess some schools do extra points for like a B+ versus, you know, a C- or a C+ or whatever. But we use a 4-point scale. It's, you know, it's easy, 3 to 0, or we could go 4 to 1. It's like whatever. That's just my preference. And I don't have to give 2.5s. I mean, when you rate, so it's really a personal preference. I'm not hung up on it, so the superintendent will know what I think at the end of the evaluation, because I will give feedback. Ms. Pritchett, did you have something?
Yeah, so I like Format A, but I do like the addition of making a comment for every piece that we give a score to. So I'm in agreement with everyone on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so discussion 2 is regarding domain 7. So you have another piece of paper in your folder that is tabbed with discussion 2. So this year for domain 7, there were 3 specific metrics that were tracked and provided a score. So you had overall district school grade, which is still there as a component. You had percentage of A and B rated schools, and district statewide ranking. So those were the 3 that comprised domain 7. Moving into 26-27, the recommendation is that we increase the number of metrics that we are tracking in domain 7 to 10 metrics. And as you just heard from our academics and school improvement teams and curriculum teams, one of the areas of focus this year has to do with the learning gains. So as you can see within these 10, 2 of them are specifically related to ELA learning gains and math learning gains. There was some discussion around the district points increase, so that was something we did not capture this year for Superintendent Main under Domain 7. So we are recommending that we do capture the overall district points increase. Graduation rate is a topic that we want to ensure that we capture here as well, so you see increasing the graduation rate. I know Mrs. Russell had provided some feedback around wanting to ensure we had an area where we were looking at the increase of our ELA achievement, so that is a metric that we're capturing here. For that one, we're looking at over the last 2 years. And then I already spoke about the learning gains. We are looking to decrease the number of schools in state status for 1 or more subgroups. And then the last one being increase the percent of the class of 2027 graduating with college and career acceleration. So the way that these 10 are laid out, you can see the point structure. So the first 3 are how we had it this year. But the other 7, you can see that we go through 3 points, 2.5 points, 2 points, 1.5 points, 0 points. 1.5 points across the board would be that we maintain. So if there's not an increase, but also not a decrease, that maintain is at the 1.5 or 1.5 points. And then from there, you can see the different metrics. So I wanted to open up the discussion around having the 10 different metrics included in Superintendent Main's Domain 7 this year.
So I like all the additional metrics. The only thing, I would like to run it and see, like, using this year's data, just because I don't want there to be a glitch at the end like we had this year. I really kind of want to see how that works out, if there's things that we need to work out, if there's scales that we need to adjust. I just don't want to get to the end and have that issue. So I would like to see it based on what we did this year and what that would look like, if we could. But I like the additional metrics. I think they're all very important metrics that, whether we increase or decrease, I think that they're good things that we should be measuring on an annual basis anyway. Ms. Roberts?
So I like the 10. I do note that 7 of the 10 are you giving a 1.5 if you maintain. If you make no movement, 70% puts you in the needs improvement slot. I mean, but I think Superintendent Main, I think that's true. I mean, I think if we're looking for growth, that you would be needing improvement if you're just coming in exactly where you were before because you didn't make any growth. So, I mean, I think that, it's going to be interesting if it falls between the 1.5 and the 1.9, but it's still the same thing. I mean, if 7 of those components you get a 1.5 at because there was no growth, then it really does need the improvement. So, I mean, it's.
I would agree with that.
When you look at the numbers, I think it looks harsh on one hand, but on the other hand, it kind of rings true because it is what it is. You wouldn't want to up those numbers and say that that's acceptable. It's acceptable to remain the same, I don't think is a fair statement, so.
Vice Chair Moriarty?
Yeah, this was probably the biggest criticism I had for this year's survey, so I appreciate the efforts to take it because I honestly felt like the superintendent was unfairly criticized with just the 3 metrics. So I appreciate you upping it to 10. They're tough, I tell you. This is no walk in the park, Superintendent. I mean, this is, I'm almost like, this is a little too tough almost, if I had to be honest.
I appreciate that, but I will tell you that during the 3 leadership days, our administrator evaluation system has changed as well. You all approved a very rigorous district administrator eval. All of us were sitting back very humbled. That is going to be extremely difficult, and it is only fair that if we're doing that for all of our district leaders, it needs to be the same for me as well. So thank you, but we're level setting to where our other administrators are as well.
Perfect. And then have you run the numbers on this for this year, what it would have been?
Yes, so I asked Dr. Laws, who's here this evening, to help us look at if we ran that through the numbers this year. So specifically, what he provided me was what Executive Director Moore referenced as the escalator clause. So this is a visual of an Excel sheet that Dr. Laws provided, and this looks at the breakdown of A's and B's. So if you just look at the metrics specifically to percentage of A and B rated schools, this year we hit 80%. But if you look at if the escalator clause had been enacted this year, where we would be, that percent would be much different. So I did want to provide you with that information, and we're happy to run additional metrics on this so you have a bigger picture, but this was something that.
Yeah, I want to talk through some of that a little bit because I think it's a little harsh. I'm not going to lie. So I do want to talk through some of that.
So what was your number? You said you ran it, Greg ran it? What is the number?
So this year.
2 points.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Not necessarily the escalator clause, if you ran these 10 metrics through the.
Those 10 metrics, I would have to go back and run those specifically with our.
Yeah, I would like to look at that and sit down and understand it a little bit more.
Yeah, well, she gets a lower score than last year.
Ms. Pritchett, did you have some?
I wanted that information as well. But I also feel like this is exactly what we're trying to do. We just went through a very comprehensive presentation on being accountable and having the ability to look at where we need improvement. And I think this speaks to that. But I do think there should probably be some tweaks because we, as Chair Powers said, we want to make sure when we do run it that we don't have the glitches. But I think this is what we need. We need to show that we are willing to put ourselves out there and be judged like we need to be, you know? I mean, it's the same theme for me. We celebrate, but we also need to look at where we need improvement. And I think, for the most part, this will be a great blueprint for that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that feedback. And just to let you know as well, when I spoke about the district priorities, so these are not a surprise to any of our school-based administrators. So these are all metrics that we're tracking through our goals this year, aligned to our priorities within our strategic plan. So these are things that our team are already very focused on with our schools, so none of them would be surprised by this. But I hear what you are saying, and I will absolutely get you that information.
Well, and I think it's really important, not just for the superintendent, but for our staff as well, to know that it's okay to be effective. We all have our strengths, we all have weaknesses, and obviously, if there's something that needs to be improved, your supervisor shouldn't be waiting until your evaluation to work with you so that you are effective at least effective across the board. And if you're not getting that support, then the superintendent needs to know about that. But it is okay to not be perfect in every domain. And I don't think that that's a reasonable expectation. So please don't put that pressure on yourself that you have to be perfect at everything. We can all lean on each other and overall be so wonderful without being absolutely perfect. So don't put that pressure on yourself, please.
Okay. Are we good to
Ms. Roberts, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Realizing, it dawned on me as I'm looking at this, your ELA achievement and your learning gains and your math gains, I'm thinking that you need to do it twice. You need to do it once for elementary and once for secondary. Because I think as we're trying to do the foundational pieces in elementary, I mean, I think that's and I think maybe adding in the low 25, but I mean, adding in, you know what I mean? So if you add in the low 25 and then you add 4 in and do it for secondary at the same time, that then you've upped it to 15 components. But I mean, I think then you've more captured. So you're not dinged with one particular piece, you know? So I mean, we're looking at elementary and we're also looking at, Paige looks confused.
Well, I
just
think,
numbers.
and Paige is the math guru, but so
Paige,
is,
come on up, Paige.
but so is Mrs. Roberts. I think here's what I'm thinking. I don't know that, I think that that's probably fair, Dr. McMahon, unless I'm missing something, because if we increase in the bottom quartile is where we're really struggling as a district right now, particularly with math. If that's an indicator on there and we bounce in bottom quartile and it goes up, but we kind of maintain, or I'm thinking it's all gonna level out, right? I mean, but.
I believe when Director Platt asked for our recommendations on metrics to be used, I actually suggested that we use the district grade components for those, just the comprehensive K-12, K-10, whoever's tested. So that way it would capture all of the schools at all of the levels, but in a single indicator. Because it could also work against you, you know, if we didn't do well in a particular, like for instance, bottom quartile math learning gains, I wouldn't want that to hurt you 3 or 4 times. But if it was a single indicator, it would only be 1. But it works the opposite as well. It would be to your advantage if it were multiple categories. I just think if we do the district-wide component, that will capture all schools, all students assessed. So we would have ELA achievement, we could have, I believe, you said ELA learning gains. I don't remember
So-
if bottom
so just-
quartile gains was its own category, but
So Paige, just take the ELA achievement.
we could.
So explain to me why I wouldn't want to do elementary as one component and secondary as another component.
Well-
I'd be adding another component, right? I mean, I'd be adding a larger base, right? And I would be putting myself so that if I excelled at one but didn't necessarily excel at the other, it's almost like. I
It
don't
could
wanna say-
offset. You're right.
You know, it could offset, and it gives a more accurate picture. So if you're part of that team. If the red team is focusing, say, on elementary, right? And elementary makes a move, but secondary doesn't, you don't end up getting hit for that because you didn't get anything at the secondary level, but you got it at the elementary level. I mean, it gives you some ability to.
It's true. The DOE doesn't report an elementary specific metric on that versus secondary, so we would just have to calculate it by hand. I just figured the actual like DOE district grade component would be comprehensive. That way it's using, matched students and all
Yeah.
of those important indicators.
But you know, I mean, because when I pull them, so for instance, I segregate out just the elementary and look just at the elementary. So I look at the low 25 learning gains, all 12 schools, look just at elementary, look last year, the prior year, 2 years of growth, 1 year, that type of thing. And then I turn around and go to middle school because I think some of it is school by school or at least level by level,
So my opinion is that we use the school-wide, like the school grading system. I think it gets really complicated. I think as a board member that you should address if it's one or the other, one went up, one went down, one stayed the same, that you should address that in your comments and rate accordingly. But I just think it gets a little difficult to add.
I think the more components you have, we aren't adding them. It's
No,
just a
no.
math thing. But I mean, I
Yeah.
think I think the more pieces you have, especially for something that's fixed in stone that we have no control over, I think the more pieces to it you have, it's like the more ingredients. If you're making spaghetti sauce and you've got 20 ingredients, if you don't have 2 of them, it's not going to kill the sauce. If you've got 4, you're kind of dead in the water.
But we have access to all of that information as we're evaluating the superintendent on that.
But we don't do that
Domain.
in this. We don't do Domain 7. Domain 7 does itself.
Oh, true.
So that's why I'm saying the more that you put into Domain
Well, we
7.
could make it a indicator in one of the other,
Ooh.
Perhaps,
as satisfactory, unsatisfactory. I think it gets really confusing to do.
I'm just thinking, Madam Chair, maybe since we're requesting a run of the data,
Yeah, let's,
maybe we run the
Do it
data
both ways and see what
ways
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that we can see.
Absolutely. No problem. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McMahon. All right, and the last piece, discussion 3, is about the final evaluation. So currently during the final evaluation process, each of you assigns a rating to every indicator, as we discussed. The ratings are averaged to determine an overall score for each domain, and then the domain scores from all of you are then averaged to calculate a final score. So I just wanted to open up the discussion around option 1 being that we maintain that current reporting, so we would keep it exactly the same as it is, which is the overall domains are an average of all school board member scores, option 1. Option 2 would be in lieu of averaging the scores, we would look across the 5 and we would look for the majority score. That would be the final score. Or option 3 would be similar to option 1, so we would maintain that you conduct your own evaluations. However, the difference would be that anything that averages out lower than a 2.5, 2.5 would be open for discussion as a board, and then consensus would be reached as to a final score.
I think option 1. And if there is an item that, comes out lower than a 2.5 and we want to talk about it, we can talk about it at that meeting when we all see everybody else's.
Well, the only thing it does.
I don't know that I would want to talk about it if it was anything, if it was below a 2, we would need to talk about it, but. Go ahead, Mr. Roberts.
The only thing I could see is if you had one board member who didn't like Mr. Main and gave him zeros for everything and pulled and it's 20% of the grade, is now pulling everything down, and it's set in stone by an average of the 5 people. I mean, that's the only.
I guess I didn't think about that.
I mean, that's the only
with
thing I would
somebody-
think of. I mean, you know, so you get somebody who thinks he's doing a horrible job, I don't like him, you know, and I give him a horrible review, and now 20% of the evaluation isn't what the consensus of the governance team is, isn't what everybody agrees on.
We can throw out the high and the low and.
Or I think it's just I think if you did option 1 with the ability to discuss it, you know, like with the ability that option 1 can be, by a majority vote of the board, be changed. I mean, I think that protects you for.
Yeah, that's fine
know?
with me, yeah.
I mean, 'cause
If
then
there's
you're-
something very blatantly obvious like that, that it should be able to be addressed by the group, yes.
Without having it in the well, but it says it's the, you know, it's just the straight average, and I just, you know, like messed you all up. So, yeah, something along those lines.
Okay, absolutely. Well, that was it for me. Any further questions?
Any other
or-
questions?
I'll get you what you've requested, and then I'll bring it back for August 25th. Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, we are moving on to public comment. Hold on 1 second. Citizen input is vital to the improvement of our district. Most times, your remarks may be listened to without comment from school board members or the superintendent. This does not mean they are heard with any less intensity or concern. Where appropriate, the superintendent and staff will investigate your comments and report back to you and the school board with an answer. We thank you for taking the time and having the concern to make our district better. The Martin County School Board respects your constitutional right to free speech. At the same time, politicking by members of the public or by members of the Martin County School Board is not an exercise of the right to free speech. When addressing the Martin County School Board on matters of the board's or district's governance of our students' education, the public and school board must refrain from engaging in any politicking during a school board meeting. Politicking is the advocating for the election or defeat of a candidate for public office through the use of words, dates, signs, props, or wearing apparel expressing advocacy for a person or group or people appearing on a ballot. Your presentation should not exceed 3 minutes. First up is Sam Fandino.
Hello, Superintendent Main, members of the school board. I know I've said the same thing like 5 times, so I will talk more about why I keep coming instead of, you guys know full well the reasons for why. But I think for me, it all boils down to gratitude. I'm really grateful to a lot of people in my life, especially my family, and I don't know how to express that really well. I say thank you. Obviously, I feel so much more than just a thank you could ever really express, especially like my grandmother. So I just have to hope that they get it, hope that they know I'm like really grateful. And the same is true for my teachers, like as a group. I would not be a graduate without them, especially not the teachers at Spectrum. I really wouldn't be. I'm going to college. I'm really happy with where my life is going. And I'm so grateful to my teachers for getting me there, because without them, I would not be there. Mr. Theobald is not the most impactful teacher I had, not even the most impactful teacher I had at Spectrum, probably my English teacher. But in the 2 months that I had him, he was a really great teacher, and he did more than what anybody would have expected him to do, in the sense that his passion and care for the subject was so evident, and it really lifted everybody up. He's been teaching since I was in diapers. It's crazy to think about. And if how he treated me is any indication of how he treated his other students, then all he did was nurture the next generation. And for him to be treated in the way that I feel he's been treated by the school board and district, I just think it's wrong. Like on a deeply human level, he's given his life to his students, and for him to be treated like that is wrong. At the beginning of each statement, you guys say, citizen input, the value of it. I would like to know your thoughts on this. It's been a year. you guys have the opportunity to address things. I would really appreciate, just personally, would a single one of you take a moment, 30 seconds, to just tell me your position on whether or not you think this school district should accept the court's recommendation? It would mean a lot to me. It would show me that I am valued, my input does matter, that my concerns as a citizen and now a voter will matter. So please, if any of you could take 30 seconds, it would mean the world to me. So thank you. I also want to say, this school board did vote to send it to the court, the District of Administrative Hearings. And I would like to know if any of you don't plan on abiding by the recommendation, of course, it's completely your decision, it's not binding, why that is. And I'd be really interested to know why, especially if it conflicts with previous votes. So yeah, that's all I have to say. I won't use the rest of my time. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up is Sherry White.
Good evening, school board members, Superintendent Main. I'm going to try and speak really fast because I have a lot to say. So in looking and listening to the presentation about the health benefits, I'm wondering, and I know that you don't have to respond, but is there a cash in lieu of benefit payment for those employees who choose not to take the health insurance plan? Also, has the school district looked at a health insurance pool? There is one right now actively, and there are 17 school districts participating. It's called the FLEHT. It was formerly known as the FSHIP program, established in 2009 by the Florida School Board Insurance Trust. And in April of 2025, the program transitioned to the FLEHT under the Florida Association of District School Superintendents, ensuring continued alignment with the needs of Florida's educational leaders. The program estimates savings of 7 to 12% when fully transitioned from a fully health insurance plan to a self-insured FLEHT participant within 1 to 3 years. The program claims members will enjoy a savings up to 13%. There are five requirements. The district school board adopts participation agreement. District must be or become self-insured. Transition plan is created with assistance available. The district officially joins the FLEHT, and each superintendent becomes a member and a trustee of the trust. So, and there are 17 participating districts. My next comment, at the last meeting of the 28th regarding the budget, there were several members of staff here, and they were concerned, they had some questions. They were looking for their millage payment. The teachers received their millage payment from last year in June. Transportation has not received their millage payment as of today's date. Also, the wellness program experience that they show, well, I can tell you that we actually did that at my former employer. And what was happening was they were giving cash incentives for those programs where people would maybe do something on their phone. They might say, oh, I did a 5K run, but it was digitally done. And it wound up that people were just saying they were doing it or they were having someone else do it for them. So that kind of went out the window because the money that was being put out, by the time most of the employees got to the end, the money ran out, so there was people that weren't getting any money. So that's something. But I really recommend that the school district look at a pool option with other school districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all I have for public comment. I'm going to move on to board comment, open to the board this time. Ms. Russell.
I just want to say welcome back to everyone. I'm looking forward to this year and all the progress we're going to make. It's going to be a great year.
Ms. Roberts, do you have anything? Ms. Pritchett? Dr. Moriarty? I just have a couple of things. One is I'm very happy to announce, been working on this for over a year, we are going to be hosting the State Board of Education meeting here in Martin County, right here in this room, October 14th. So we're really very, very excited about that. I did have an opportunity to meet the new Education Commissioner. He's very excited to come and really see all the great things that we're doing in Martin County. So I know everyone is going to give him a very warm welcome and the entire board in October 14th. So lots more information to come, but of course, all the actual board meeting will be at 9 a.m. on the 14th. I'm working with the superintendent. We're looking at maybe doing some things on the day before, some visits to schools so that they can kind of see what we're doing and the really innovative things that we're doing. So if you have suggestions, reach out to the superintendent, and then hopefully we'll be able to get all of us together and meet the staff from DOE, and it's going to be a great couple days. So I'm really excited for Martin County, and really excited to showcase all the work that our team does every day. So thank you for that. And then just a reminder that we are doing the backpack giveaway on Friday at Warfield Elementary, 12:30.
Be there at 11. Be there at 11? At least that's when we're going to get there to kind of get things going.
Yeah, so be there as soon as you can. I will. 11 till it's done. So, all right. That is it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Marcia, great job getting that meeting.
Oh, my God, I'm so excited.